Welcome to another episode of the Global Exclusive Podcast. Today we have a slim crew or a hot date, depending on how you define it. This joke is getting old. I should just stop doing this joke, right,
Barros,
Muspo?
Barros, Barros. A connection error has occurred.
Oh my fucking god. Oh my god. Okay, it's so much PTSD from that bullshit. Ugh, fuck me. Anyways, I was saying, welcome to the podcast. It's just me and Muspo today for this quite uneventful week, I guess, with some exciting stuff to talk about, though, still. And maybe I'll get to share a story of why 500 pulls are good in this game and why
A
you should
connection
do
error has
500
occurred.
pulls. All right, but getting back to the podcast, should we talk about some of the units that we have encountered this week? I guess let's start with the most exciting one, Cleo.
Yes. Cleome is another true double-hand katana wielder. Everybody was really excited when Sephiroth came out, so I think
Yeah,
Gumi decided to really build on that, so they gave us another one. Uh,
she
like
also has
him,
dark damage, right?
yeah. She's got dark and peril. She also has fire and ice. So
Hmm.
I'm assuming that she's just like better than Sephiroth, right?
Yeah, she's probably just an upgrade. So let's look at the mods, I guess, right?
Yeah. Uh, So she's okay. So to be serious, she's like I don't want to say she's like Regina, but she's got like the multicast with unique selection to power
Right.
up one move. She doesn't have the LB damage buff thing, does she?
Actually, I don't know because she also she's
Oh,
not
actually,
doing the
she does
five
have it on
casts, but
on
yeah.
her cooldown, I guess.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And like I mean, or rather to take our listeners through the history of this unit. This unit literally came out like a long time ago in JP. Like this is a really old unit. You remember that we're getting old units that have been skipped. They are throwing them in on random banners, and this is Cleome's turn. Um, I seem to remember Sinzar saying that Cleome was actually good back when she came out, but since she probably came out like a year ago or two, actually, has to be 2 years because a year ago we got NV. So this like she came out 2 years ago, and she was good back then, but not anymore. I guess she is very outdated, right?
Uh, yeah, she has like a 250x modifier on her move when it's fully stacked, and she can only do that like once every 4 turns.
Right, and that's a single move, right? She can't. I mean, she doesn't. It's a single
Correct.
250x
It's
moves
she's
because it's
single casting a 250x move.
yeah. So that's literally nothing. That's lower than NV Rain,
Yeah,
and
and
that's
she
saying a
came
lot.
out about a year and a half ago.
A year and a half. Okay, a year and a half. Okay,
Yeah,
so she came out
April
about
2020.
okay. So that's still a fair amount of time ago, right? Like releasing a 7 star that's a year and a half ago or a
Yeah.
year and a half old is
Oh
obviously
yeah.
bad. But I did hear she gets an NVA.
She does. I'm not actually sure how good that is. I haven't really looked at it. Let
I
me
heard
pull
people
up her
saying it was
wiki
decent.
page.
I heard people say. I mean, obviously, listeners, do not pull for Cleome for her NVA. Okay, please, just that's not what we're saying. We're just saying there is an NVA at the end of the tunnel. So if you're going,
Well, let's see. It looks like the modifier boosts on her abilities got a lot bigger. Like they went from like 10x to 150x.
oh,
So that's significant.
I,
Um,
I think people are saying she's decent. Like again, it's an NVA, so it's not like she's not an Edgar, but she's decent. Anyway,
uh,
I
she,
guess like it's
she she doesn't get any new NV skills aside from like a passive. What's her brave shift?
right. Okay. Well, I mean, and also another problem is that both her TMR and STMR are not good. Like
Yeah.
maybe the katana, so her STMR is a katana with killers. Maybe that would see use if you're facing a Reaper or Machina.
The TM is honestly like not useless, but it's not great.
Yeah, but I mean 20% attack and 25% killers. 25% killers just give me OCD. I actually don't use them even if they are better than whatever else because like I just can't. It feels
Yeah,
so
this is the
wrong.
unit where if I pulled her off banner, I would probably use a moogle on her because I've got way too many moogles and I may as well.
Yeah,
but
sure,
it's the kind of item you'll see, like you'll use it on your second or third damage dealer in Dark Visions or Clash of Wills, and
right.
even then it's not exciting.
No, so literally, like, she is not fun to get, unfortunately. She does have a really cool CGLB though. I'm gonna say that it actually does look good. So it's a shame, but again, her NVA might actually be decent. So if you went super deep for Ygni and got like 20 Cleomes, at least you're gonna have an NVA. So yeah. Is there any?
Hypothetically, maybe someday.
Yeah, maybe some if it even comes out. So should we maybe move on to the actual unit that people are actually seems like quite excited about?
Yeah, Igni? I'm not sure how
Yeah,
to pronounce this.
someone told me it might be Ygni, but yeah, whatever.
Word should not begin with a Y and then a consonant.
Yeah, it is weird. It is weird, but hey, never mind. It's a Moogle this time, not as adorable as Noppy was, and I don't know if this is a boy or a girl Moogle. I don't know if we know. Not that it's
I think the
relevant.
creator said it was a guy, but canonically Moogles are genderless, so in game neither.
Yeah, okay.
Just like
I did
Napi.
not know that.
Yeah, Napi, like the creator said that Napi was a girl, but
Yeah, no, I know
in
that,
game
but not
neither.
not that they are genderless.
Oh yeah.
Huh. Okay. All
Like
right.
I'm not sure
So,
if that's like an official thing that they said, but every single Moogle in the game, like every Moogle unit has gender listed as other. So
hmm,
like
okay, yeah.
even trust Moogles.
I wonder if that's the case in Well, okay, I guess in FFBE, right? Okay, yeah, yeah, that's what you mean.
Well,
Because I'm,
even the ones from other games, like the Moogle from Final Fantasy VI, is
yeah,
also like
but
that.
I do think you remember Final Fantasy 9, where there's this little mini game slash
I
quest where
never
you get
played
to
9.
deliver. Okay, okay. So in Final Fantasy 9, there's a mini game or a mini quest, so to speak, where so Moogles are your save points, but every Moogle can also send letters to another Moogle. So you can kind of you become their mailman. You're like sending letters between. So you need to also visit all the save points in order to deliver all the letters. And I'm pretty sure they have pronouns, actually.
I don't know. Uh, I
Okay, never
I
mind.
briefly skimmed the wiki earlier this week because I was looking like for a little more info on this. Apparently, like the only game where Moogles have like well-defined genders is Final Fantasy 12,
Oh,
and they're those aren't like quote unquote normal Moogles, if you know what I mean. Like they're
yeah, yeah.
different than the ones in other games because they don't fly or whatever.
True, true. Yeah, okay, okay. I gotcha. Very interesting tidbit on movies. This is why our listeners tune in, Muspel.
Oh
This
yeah,
is why they tune in.
this is the information they came here for.
This is I mean this is or actually let me put it this way. This is not why they tune in, but this is why they stay. Am I right?
Sure, let's go with that.
All right. But let's actually talk about this unit. So it's a pretty interesting unit, to be honest. Has a lot of going for it, I guess.
Yeah, so the first thing to talk about is that like this is probably the first thing you'll see if you look at a damage spreadsheet, or at least the wiki damage spreadsheet, is Ygni's sustained damage is very, very high.
Mm,
Uh, the highest in the game by a huge margin. I'm trying to remember exactly like how it compares to Tifa, like ratio wise. Let's see. About double Tifa's damage.
which is
Sustained.
sus- that's still significant, right?
Yeah, and Tifa is already like 60% above Noctis.
Mhm.
So, yeah. It's a lot of damage. He doesn't burst, or they, Igni does
It
not burst very hard.
right, right.
Because like the sustained damage is like 2.8 trillion. The burst damage is like 3.2 trillion. He basically just chain guns out the same damage
So
almost
he's
every
kind of
turn.
like a corral, but does ridiculous damage.
Yeah, like if Corral was not terrible.
Yeah, exactly.
That's outside of Clash of Wills though. Inside Clash of Wills, uh, they've got morale damage skills that are
Mhm.
substantially stronger. Um, let's see, where's the modifiers on those? 810x quadcast. So that's going to be, let's see, what's his normal total modifier? I just want to get a vague estimate on the damage here.
And while you're doing that, I can just tell our listeners that so Igni's, as you said, his average is 20 or 2,800 billion, burst damage for 3,200. But so just as a comparison, the burst is about half that of Tifa's and Sephiroth. So it's still like significantly lower burst. Even if you hear twice as much sustained damage, that is still big, and it's super big for like so I need to explain this to our listeners, Muspel. So please give me a moment here because I need to explain to them the concept of trials. So earlier in the game, and I know all of you are new, we actually had this thing called trials where we were fighting bosses over a number of turns. They had exciting mechanics, and and in these some of these trials it made sense. You actually had several turns to do damage on. So like chaining every turn became a good thing. That's a good thing. And
Yeah, and,
Yigni
and,
would
and if you did too much damage to the boss at once, you usually couldn't one-shot them, and they would like do multiple thresholds, and
right.
bosses could like kill you. It was
Exactly. It wasn't possible. Like if you couldn't one shot the boss, you didn't want to pass multiple thresholds. So you wanted to, have high damage, but without, crossing multiple thresholds. So Yigni is perfect for trials. Unfortunately, don't have too many of those lying around.
yeah.
So,
So from some really quick napkin math, I think the burst in Clash of Wills would be about 8.8 trillion.
right. Holy
And
crap.
to put that in context, Tifa's burst is about 6.2 trillion.
Right. So it's higher than Tifa's on element. Keep in mind, like of course
Correct.
that matters a lot for cow. Do you have numbers for Sky in cow? Like where does she
I
land?
I don't.
I'm just wondering, like, is this a unit that beats Sky? Obviously, this is also a dark unit. We should just go out and say that this is a dark unit, which really, sends a strong signal that next cow might be dark, meaning also that Sephiroth is probably going to be good in next cow. So that's some good news. Unless they really just screwed us over and gave us a dark morale unit, but has nothing to do with the element of the next cow. Because so far, all units released that have morale damage have always been perfect for whatever cow is upcoming. But yeah, so very strong sustained damage. Unfortunately, sustained damage is not that much worth. But if you look at it the other way, um, his burst is still the second highest of all mages. The only mage, if you can call her that bursts highest is Cetra Descendant Aerith with a Reflectric.
Yeah.
Um, but otherwise, he bursts harder than our evokers, but his damage is not evoke, meaning he can have killers. So, you know, he does a
Yeah.
lot of damage.
Just from like a quick eyeballing of modifiers, I think stat wise it would probably be kind of comparable. Uh, I
Okay.
think that he and Sky would be in vaguely the same ballpark. I would say within 30% of each other, but without actually busting out a spreadsheet and doing some stuff that we're not going to do mid podcast, I can't say
Yeah,
for
of
sure.
course, of course. No, but it's good. It's good for our listeners to know that's about the power level you're looking at, basically. And so this is a very strong unit in sustained damage, strong in burst too. Like obviously,
Yeah.
this might still be like unless you if you have Tifa or Sephiroth, yes, they're going to be better for DV, um, not for cow, obviously, but for like aside from them, this is the hardest bursting unit. Really, like I do see the Sky bursts a bit harder, like slightly in a DV setting, but other than that,
Yeah.
that's it.
Um, I also want to say he's got some utility. Like, uh, so the first thing that he has is an 85% full break Magnus that's also a perfect dispel for enemies. So that's useful in
Yeah. And
some
two uses,
situations.
meaning you can use it for
Yeah,
6 turns, which is 5 turns too long for any fight.
And then in his Brave Shift, he's got a Magnus ability that removes debuffs from all allies, which is like imperils and breaks and also stop and charm, but that's
Also
usually
very
less
nice.
relevant. So that's a big deal. He's got a field effect that boosts magic by 30% for your party. That's not going to be a whole lot, but I mean, it stacks with buffs, so
Yeah,
it'll
so
help
it's
make your
good.
Aerith or whatever a bit stronger. Uh, what else does he have?
He has the spread, which is, I guess, semi-interesting.
Yeah, he like Zon, Ygni can copy buffs from themselves to all allies.
But he can't steal buffs as Zon can, so it
Yeah,
limits the usability. But it still has some niche uses, though.
yeah. In practice, the thing is with Zon, you were usually like having some unit that had a big killer buff for themselves, like 200% ideally, or at least like 150, and then you were spreading that around to the party. But there's not many units that have single target buffs that they can cast on another unit.
Right.
Like all the buffs are either AoE or self only, so Igni doesn't help with those.
Yeah.
So I think there.
And the other use case is also copying elemental resistances or
Well,
imbues,
no,
and
he doesn't
obviously,
copy those.
no, no, no. I mean,
Oh,
for
with Zon,
Zon,
yeah,
yeah, those are the other uses for DV, and Igni can't do them either, because Igni's also spread. I guess you were just about to say that is less powerful
yeah.
than Zon's.
Igni only spreads stat buffs, killer buffs, and imbues, and he also gives a mod boost for all abilities to all allies, or to physical abilities.
Right, except LBs.
Yeah. So that's
But
honestly not super useful, just because like almost everything is an LB these days.
yeah, might be if you're like putting, I don't know. Yeah, I can't really even think, as you said, I
It,
can't even think of
to
a
be
unit that
to
has a
be
really high single
significant,
target killer.
it would have to be a unit. The mod boost thing to be significant, it would have to be a unit
Parts.
that like, yeah, Bart's is basically the only one that comes even close, and his damage is kind of outdated these days. But a unit with single target moves that have multiple portions, ideally with ignore defense, so that basically that 10x modifier boost gets applied a lot of times and hopefully doubled by the ignore defense thing. But
Right.
realistically, it's not going to do much in most situations.
No.
I think that there's two main ways to make use of this buff sharing thing. The first thing is you just spread around the buffs that Igni does themselves, which is uh, they've got some imbues, they've got 100%,
300% buffs on the Magnus, so the full break Magnus actually gives him 300% buffs to all stats.
300% stat buffs. Although most units can buff their own attack and magic, so that's
Yeah.
not very useful. Um, they've also got killer buffs. It's what, Fairy and Reaper.
Mm, yes, I want to say,
Fairy and
but I want to
Human.
double.
Sorry.
Very new. Okay.
Yeah. So that's only 100%. It's not that good. There's one other way to use it, which is kind of reminiscent of how Zon was sometimes used in DV, which is if the boss is going to dispel, then you put some buffs on this unit, and then they hide, and then the boss dispels, and they come back, and then they spread the buffs. So you manage to preserve everything through a dispel.
Right, right.
So that could help you like set up more quickly after a dispel, whereas normally you might have to wait longer. So if you need like 4 turns of setup and the boss dispels every 3 turns, you can kind of shuffle stuff around and make that work. But
Exactly.
it's still not super
And
exciting.
and he's
And
less of a dead slot compared to Zon, right? Because if you're bringing this unit, you're still bringing damage. You're still bringing a lot of damage, actually. So
yeah, and Igni does not have innate hide, so you would need to give them concealing cloth or what's the thing that gives jump? The thing that gives jump, I forget the name of it. Winddrake
um,
horn, is that it?
in Final Fantasy 6, yes, but I don't know in FFB or it's actually, yeah. Is it called Windrake Horn? It's something horn at least
Yes,
that gives
Winddrake
jump.
horn. I just
Okay.
looked it up.
Okay. But there is one thing that I want to mention since you're talking about the copying. Igni can actually do something that's interesting in his Brave Shift, which is actually steal the boss's stat buffs. So in the rare case, I don't even know if there is such, but if there is a boss that has very high stat buffs, like above 300%, Igni can steal them and spread them to your party.
Yeah, this
Um,
has historically not really been a thing.
Yeah.
Bosses just don't do stat buffs that are that big. There's been like one exception. It was an event boss like 3 years ago, and people used Zon, and because the boss buffed his defense and spirit by like 1,000% or something crazy.
Yeah, wasn't that like Sid or something? I
Yeah,
remember that.
yeah, it was like Doctor Sid and Famfrit or something. I think.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, yes. Final Fantasy 12. Yes, that's true. That's true. And you could just like you could kill the boss easier because you stole his
Yeah.
buffs. Um,
However, the fact that Ygni has this makes me think that the next Clash of Wills might feature a boss with like 400% buffs.
True, true. Good point. Good point. That definitely. I mean, definitely smells like Gumi Alum design, where units are tailored for the event they are released for. But again, I wouldn't like bet. Like, I mean, it's
Yeah.
likely, but this unit wasn't released with a cow. This has never happened before. This is a morale unit that wasn't released with a cow. There is no guarantee that the next cow is dark. Honestly, no guarantee. But
Yeah. I do think
it's
it's
likely.
interesting that they did release a Morale unit without Clash of Wills, because
Absolutely.
it kind of shows that, and I think when they first announced Clash of Wills in the Morale gauge, I think a lot of people were concerned with the idea of morale abilities because they were worried that these units would be useless outside of Clash of Wills. And that's not really the case for any of them. It's
No.
probably the most true for Sky. Sky has the least to do outside of Clash of Wills, but even then, it's not like Sky is terrible. It's
I
just
mean, she's still our third hardest bursting unit in the game, so there's that.
fourth.
Fourth?
Aerith,
Oh, I guess
Sephiroth,
Aerith.
Tifa.
Yeah, yeah, okay, okay. If you
Yeah,
count Aerith, yes. I was thinking of physical, but you're right. You're right. She's fourth. So she, I mean, right. I wouldn't even say that about Sky because I think she is fairly strong, regardless.
yeah.
So no unit so far has been worthless, but you're right in that Sky has the least to do outside
Yeah.
of DV or
I do
outside
I
of
do
Cal.
think it's unlikely that you're going to use Igni and Dark Visions unless you're short on options or it's the right element for them. But
I mean,
um just
3.2.
because the burst is not like super high compared to other units.
True, true. Also, what's the ceiling of this unit is something I've been wanting to know because, well, I would have gone
Like
to a
with
whale
like
sheet now.
STMRs.
Yeah, exactly. Because like one of Luisa's problems was that in the wiki sheet she looks really strong, but that was her ceiling, literally. So like when you scaled all other units up for STMRs, Louise fell behind pretty hard, actually. Of course, Louise has so much else that compensates because you really want her on a team because she has so much else. But I'm just wondering, is Igni the same? Like does he cap everything and is really strong with just like basic gear?
He's pretty much capped on everything. Yeah, like he's at 400% magic. He doesn't care about LB damage. Doesn't care about anything else really.
And how about amps and so on? Because I see already he has 50 for himself, and
Yeah,
meaning that like external support is not going to get him much higher. So
I
I,
think
I'm
pretty comparable to Tifa in that like they both have a lot of spare room for materia or whatever
yeah.
for killers. Like Tifa does need LB damage as well, but she doesn't struggle to gear for that really.
I guess the biggest thing is like if you compare the wiki rating build. I mean, the whale Tifa, she's going to be having two of her own STMR and
Yeah,
like the bells
Igni
and
does
whistles,
not
right?
have anything like that.
And that's the thing. Like Igni is not going to grow as much as these units. So even if he bursts half as much right now in a whale setting, he probably bursts for even less compared to like Sephiroth and Tifa.
Yeah,
Maybe I mean maybe that's why I wanted to bring up the whole what's the ceiling thing because sometimes these units do have a very low ceiling, but also limits their growth very much.
yeah.
I mean, it's a double-edged sword. It's pros and cons, right? Because a new player is going to love Ygni because they are fantastic out of the box.
Yeah.
Fantastic unit, super strong. A veteran or a whale might be less impressed by the fact that, well,
I guess we should
they
also
don't grow.
mention that Igni has an AoE 30% dark amp.
That's actually pretty good. That's very good,
Yeah.
actually.
I that is that the highest dark AoE dark amp in the game?
What does Venera have? Does Venera even have an amp?
I'm trying to think who else even has one.
I don't know, actually. Do we even have dark units, right? Like the only one I
Sephiroth.
can think of. Yeah, but no, I know, but he doesn't do any AoE amps.
Yeah. Uh
Um, Yeah, probably not. I mean, Venera is the only one I can think of, and I'm not sure amps were a thing when she came out.
They were. She had a 50% amp for herself. I don't know if she had an AoE
Oh,
one.
okay,
Okay,
sure.
Edel has 15%, Venera has 25% AoE,
Okay,
and
there we go.
Conch has 25% AoE. So yes,
So
this
this
is
is
this
the
is the
higher.
strongest AoE dark amp,
Right, good, good. That's nice
and
for a dark team.
yeah,
I
and
mean,
it
might be
also
very
has an imbue.
valuable. Yeah, and it might be very valuable for the upcoming cow if the upcoming cow is dark, right? So then obviously
Yeah,
this unit does sound tailored to it. And if the boss is human fairy, yada yada. You know how it goes.
yeah,
Sky was the exact same unit.
yeah.
Pretty cool.
Uh,
Do we want to talk about the TMR and STMR or anything?
TMR is not very exciting. It's a magic materia if you're
Yeah, it's
using.
50% magic, 20% HP with a dagger. I actually misread that first time. I was like, oh, this is a 70% magic material with a dagger. But no, it's actually HP. So it's actually, yeah, it's not great, to be honest.
Yeah, with the event, you can upgrade it to also have 50% true dual wield magic, which is not bad. 50% magic, 50% true dual wield is fine. There's a problem right now in that it's bugged, and the upgraded version does not trigger Igni's Trust passive.
Oh, okay, okay. Oh, that's interesting. Good to know. I guess that's getting fixed soon. I hope.
Probably, yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
all the other units with upgraded TMs don't have that problem, so hopefully they fix this one.
right.
Maybe it's been fixed already, actually. I have not been paying attention very
But this
closely to
TMR
that.
actually reminds me about something that's quite important to talk about with Igni, which is his gearing. So, or I guess this ties into his STMR. So maybe we should just say what his STMR is.
Sure. His STMR is a dagger with 180 magic and 50% true dual wield. True dual wield magic.
Right. And there's a
And,
problem with
and,
that
and some
because
HP.
yeah, and the problem is it's a dagger. And well, rod imperils is usually what you use when you're using mages. I see that Igni has no dagger imperil for himself. You can, of course, pair him with Ling, and she'll give him a dagger imperil. But the other problem is that if you're using a dagger imperil, then you need to equip him with two daggers. And the only second dagger that's like remotely good is Benevolent Beauty Rem's dagger. Um, and those are quite low magic.
That one
So
has like 170, and this one is 180.
yeah, but I mean, it's low compared to the weapons that have 230, right?
Yeah.
Um, so there's this like you could. I mean, obviously you can just gear Igni with
I think in
rods, right?
practice you rarely use their STMR on them.
Yeah, because like you're just probably using two rods and you're enjoying whatever rod and peril you can find.
Yeah. The wiki
Um,
spreadsheet build is using the DV staff and the DV rod. In practice, you would probably use two rods
yeah,
in most cases.
yeah, weapon imperils are big, are a very big thing, obviously. So that's something to keep in mind. I guess maybe like the dagger is not super valuable for him, which then of course ties into the vision card. That's a 110 magic vision card, so we're going back to 110. We're no longer at 115. That seems to be just a one-off for Luis and Ling. And it also has 80% magic with a dagger. So yeah,
Yeah, daggers are not a terrible mage weapon. It's just that there aren't busted options for them like there are for other weapon types. So,
exactly, exactly.
this
Although
card also gives 50% Fairy Killer at
mm,
level 10 for FFBE units, and Spirit Killer is one of the harder things to come by. So this could
true.
be relevant.
Yeah. Um, so I mean, all in all, a great unit. Obviously, like if you pull this unit, you're not going to be sad, whoever you are, whether you're new or old. This is a fantastic unit with a lot going for it, especially if it's gonna destroy the upcoming cow.
Yeah,
And the cow burst was really high. You said Muspel just by napkin math that it's somewhere in the ballpark of Sky, maybe higher, maybe lower, but somewhere there, meaning that this is a unit you're probably going to be using for other cows as
yeah.
well, even if they are off element.
I think at least in the short term, Igni finds his way onto most dark element stages in Dark Visions
Right.
and into a lot of Clash of Wills stages as long as they don't like screw over his elements.
Absolutely. Yeah. Uh,
Um, but he's not a must-have unless you really care about high rankings, which is, that's true of pretty much every damage dealer.
Yeah, that's how they're building it, right? That's just how it is. That's just how it is. The only downside comparable to Sky that I want to raise is that Sky's maximum damage morale abilities are LB, which is non-elemental, meaning that Sky is probably a unit that's more has more longevity, like when it comes to cow, because she'll be able to be on element for every cow, whereas Ygni's highest burst is still his dark, right?
Yes, there is something I want to note though, which is that Sky has almost no utility. She has like a
Yeah, yeah,
defense
absolutely.
break, and that's it. Igni has Igni can fill the morale gauge a little bit. It's by like 1% per turn, so not much, but I guess it's that on top of whatever you get from using his damage skill that does the
Yeah,
same thing. Um, and then he's also got the utility, so even if he's off element, you might use Igni for something. Whereas
true,
Sky, once her damage falls behind, is just going to be on the bench. Period. So
true.
I think it depends a lot on the rate of power creep and how often Igni's utility is relevant.
Yeah, because I mean, you have to keep in mind, even if Ygni's damage would sink to like 30% of his damage in cow, because he's off element and like dark is actually resisted by the boss, he's still probably gonna do more damage than any other damage dealer that's non morale based, because of just how well morale abilities scale. So there's that. Um, but yeah, yeah, so great unit, great unit. I mean, this so much utility in a little moogle. Great sprite, very interesting sprite. And our second moogle hero, or moogle NV, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. I just want to say this is like the kind of damage dealer design I'd like to see more of. Not like the utility here is not incredible, but there's at least something here to look at and something to think about. And it's not like when we get Sephiroth or Tifa where you're like, yep, they have an LB.
And that's about it. No, absolutely. I fully agree. I cannot agree more. Like, despite me loving both Sephiroth and Tifa, I just hate that design. I just can't. I think it's terrible, and I hate that my units are stupid one button units. This is not that game. I can play other gachas that are that game, and I
Oh,
do.
there's one other thing I want to talk about, which is some of Igni's skills cost HP to use. Um,
Oh, I did not know that.
this uses the same mechanic as like Paladin Cecil's HP cost skills, if you remember those. So it's a percentage of current health.
Right, right.
So it's hard for it to kill you. Now this is affected by element amps for
Hmm,
insane reasons. So
that's very interesting, actually.
even more strangely, I found out earlier this week, it's also affected by Mirage.
Oh, wow. What?
So
Wait.
you have to be careful. If you're planning to use Mirage, make sure that Igni attacks before you apply Mirage.
Otherwise, you're wasting stacks. Very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, otherwise he'll eat the stacks and then probably die on the enemy's turn if you needed those stacks.
Right, right. Okay, good point. Good point. And that's actually so that's not his morale ability. It is his standard chaining ability.
Correct. So this
Um,
is probably not a big issue.
no, no, sorry, sorry. It,
Um,
it is also the morale ability. My bad. Um,
oh, does the
it,
morale ability?
yeah, the
Okay, yeah, it does.
shrouding veil has also 10%, meaning also that if you're doing, four of those, you're eating, well, whatever that is, since it's of current HP, but it's still going to be a
Yeah,
significant amount of HP.
yeah. Uh, the Dark Amp is going to be the most significant one because that costs 30% of his health, which is 45% with a 50% amp applied.
Yeah.
Um, so
But still, he can't kill himself, so,
he
or,
can
yeah. Oh, he can.
because of the amp he can,
Oh, shit.
but it's
Okay.
really hard. He would have to be. I think he has to be at like 2 HP for it to kill himself or something.
Okay. All right. All right. Okay. But good point. Good point. Thanks for raising that. I actually had no idea. So
Yeah,
that's something that's really good to keep track of,
yeah.
especially due to the morale thing. Yeah,
In
sorry, no,
practice, I think
Mirage.
unless the boss is using like a 99% gravity, I think Ygni is probably never going to kill himself. Usually, for that to be an issue, you need a unit where the second cast starts before the first one has drained your health. Because in
Right,
that case, they both go off like the original health value. Like Dark Knight Lunith can kill himself with these mechanics, but
right.
Ygni, it's borderline impossible.
Yeah, good to know. Good to know. I guess the only, of course, danger there is if there's a ticking poison damage, or if there's actually not poison because that's, oh no, yes, poison because poison is of max HP, or some fixed damage,
Or, yeah, damage over
something.
time or whatever.
Yeah, anything. Okay, very interesting. Very interesting. Very cool unit. Looks
Yeah.
great. Super happy. I fully agree with you. Super happy that we're getting interesting damage dealers. I'd like to see more of these. I even think Sky is in a good enough place, honestly. I just hate the place where Sephiroth and Tifa is. Like, I am at the point where I will even accept units like Sky. Because please don't give us more
Yeah.
units with two abilities. Come
At
on.
least Sky is not just a walking LB. Like,
Yeah,
they clearly were like, okay, let's make her use her LB in more L battles, but then she'll jump everywhere else.
yeah.
And she'll also have a break.
And that's, hey, I'm a simple man. That's good enough. That's good enough. Just not there's one Magnus and you use that to fill an LB that you hit fucking hard with. Okay. I mean, there's a charm in hitting hard, but you know, this is not that game. This game needs to be deeper.
Yeah,
All right.
pretty much.
So should we move on? I actually wanted to bring up Terra a bit, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Because something that has happened now is that we now have Terra's Chronicle Battle that lets you upgrade her STMR to +4, gaining you. Now I'm doing this from memory, but I think it's 50% LB, 500% flat magic. Um, and another thing that just happened with Terra is that Celeste got released. And Celeste has a card that gives flat magic, as well as a STMR that gives flat magic. And we've been doing some calculations in the Discord, and it's really dependent on what your item world roles are. But it seems like Terra's new best in slot is actually using her new upgraded STMR, Celeste's STMR, and Celeste's card. She gets really high magic and starts evoking harder than Luna. And I just wanted to say that because I like Terra, because I know that her damage is completely irrelevant right now. I'm sorry, but I like her.
Yeah. I will say this is like on the wiki sheets. This is without STMRs. I'm not sure what it looks like with STMRs. Luna might pull back ahead, or
No, no,
maybe
no.
Terra
We,
would
we
pull
did we
further
did
ahead.
we did full STMR calcs,
Oh,
and
okay.
she's ahead of Luna. Assuming even assuming she only gets a 30% amp externally, because there is no higher for fire, I think, that you actually can get yet. 30% is still the highest, if I remember
Okay.
correctly. But yeah, so she does pull ahead already. So that's nice. Good to know that fire teams, like she's worth, like she might be worth putting in a fire team depending on what other units you have access to, right?
Yeah.
Um, so that's good, and she does like it seems to help her. She still doesn't get her crown upgrades. We're hoping she's getting next week. So let's see. Let's speak more about that if they come.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, and the only other thing we have this week is, well, the only event like thing we have is, I guess, the return of the Cruelest Creations, which is the events we got for the unit design contest bosses, or the boss design contest bosses.
Yeah. This is the Kairos or what it. That's his name. Kairos.
Yeah, something
Kairos.
like that. So it seems like the mission rewards have been reset, meaning that you still get a cool, what, 1,000 lapis or something, or maybe less, but it's still a lot of lapis.
I think
It's
it's
a
like
lot of stages.
900 because there's
Yep.
9 stages.
So that's nice. There's a lot of lapis in it, but the actual event rewards have not been reset. So we cannot get another Behemi STMR upgrade, unfortunately.
TMR.
And
Yeah.
all, oh, sorry, yeah, TMR. And no other goodies, of course, either. So don't look at the rank rewards. You're going to be already
Yeah.
maxed. Well, unless you weren't maxed last time. Obviously, this is your second chance.
There is a new materia from the event that we didn't get last time. It's a materia with 75% bird and aquatic killer, so that's really good. And you
Oh
can
wait,
get two
I did
copies
not
of
know
it.
that. Does that drop from like just the regular levels of the event?
It's from the missions. You get 4 copies of a normal version of it, and then you can upgrade 2 of them into an upgraded version
Oh,
that gives 75% instead of 50.
oh, but that's super
So
pleasant. I did not know that. That's nice. I'm gonna go
yeah,
craft that.
so go make your 2 copies of Ruler of Sea and Sky Plus.
Mm, cool. All right, all right. Yeah, but not much else to say. Really, no content this week. I mean, obviously DV is out, but we can't talk about the final stage yet. We don't know what it is because that's coming out on 2 days from when we record the podcast. So unfortunately, you're gonna just have to join our Discord and join the Dark Vision channel where we have a lot of really talented DV players that keep capping every DV. So there's no better place for getting those the best tips really for DV,
Yeah, we,
honestly.
we have a
Like
lot of really talented DV players, and then we also have Barrows in there. So
yeah.
you got the full spectrum.
And literally the only thing I ask for every DV is I get into that channel. I'm like, can someone just help me explain what I need to do to just kill the last boss? And I am good. Because that's where I have that's like where I've come with DV really. I can't it just took so much time the first DVs when we were tryharding. And I just can't waste that much time on just sitting in the builder anymore. Um, but I really respect the people that do because there are some really interesting and exciting team comps that get born out of people, really trying to maximize and cap. So that's a tip for our listeners. Join our Discord if you want to cap DV. It's a promise. If you don't cap, Muspel will send you money.
I will not be sending anyone money.
All right, he will not be sending you money, but he will be nice to you.
I will not be
Maybe.
nice to anyone.
Yeah, I heard it as I said it. Muspel nice to people sounds so weird. Sounds so weird. All right. Did I forget it? Do we forget anything? Do we have anything else to talk
A
about this
connection
week?
error has occurred.